to take a look at the pure e-commerce business, Chewy.
Right, so Chewy reports earnings today after market, and they did recently IPO, and that was in June, on June 14th, I believe. And since then, their shares are down about 12% or so. So they really haven't blasted off since that. But it seems that a lot of people really love this company. So Landon, I'm very interested in what your data shows about people's responses to Chewy.
Yeah, so you said it. This is a very well-loved company. They have extremely high customer happiness. I think it may be one of our highest companies as far as happiness goes, at around 87%, which is a bit unheard of as far as LikeFolio data goes. And you know, when I first started looking at this company, it reminded me of Pets.com many years ago. And I was actually shocked to learn that Pets.com only got up to a $300 million valuation before it crashed. So Chewy's is about 12 billion. So we're totally in a different league now. So it's not the same story at all. But yeah, when you look at the happiness here, it's extremely happy, around 87%. Again, unheard of. They have a ton of customer service employees making sure that people are happy. You know, a lot of times we talk about Wayfair on this show. They're extremely have a customer base that's extremely happy as well. But Chewy has about twice as many employees per dollar of revenue that Wayfair does. And so they're spending that money making sure that people are happy. And the reason that they do that is because they're bringing in customers and they see them as long-term investments. They've got this auto ship that sends pet food on a regular basis. So it's not just selling one time, it's getting that annual recurring revenue coming in, and that's really important to them.
Landon, what's incredible about your happiness chart too is the growth in the amount of mentions as well, and it's still staying steady in terms of that high level of happiness. That's got to be also somewhat unheard of too, right?
Right. Normally when companies add a lot of customers and purchase intent goes up, and total number of mentions goes up, happiness sort of trends downward, generally speaking. There's a little bit of a trend downward here, but it's still extremely, extremely high. And so when we look at purchase intent, and that's obviously that's the most important thing for us, is when people are talking about signing up for these services or buying dog food or cat food through them, we see that it is up quite a bit. We actually have them up 11% quarter over quarter, about 43% year over year. And so when we look at how the revenues trended for the company, it looks like estimates are coming in at about a 3% quarter over quarter growth, and we're showing 11%. And so we're very bullish on the company overall. It looks very strong. There's a lot of concerns. Obviously, their gross margins are, they're about 23%, which is up from 20% the previous quarter, but they're still taking about a 3% loss on sales. So every dollar that they bring in, they're still losing 3 pennies. So they need to turn that corner to profitability. But with 11 million customers in the U.S., they're on their way, I think.
Landon, I like that you bring up the active customers, because you're right, they have seen a huge surge in new customers. I mean, since last year, their latest earnings report says that their active customers have increased by 44.6%. And I mean, that is just
incredible. Such
a strong number. I mean, they're really growing fast. But also that you bring up auto ship, because I think that's where I saw a lot of this, a lot of these customers on Twitter that showed all of the love for Chewy because of how fast they can ship, and also their customer support. And that seems to also be where they really separate themselves from Amazon, who of course is, as we know, the e-commerce destroyer pretty much if you're a little guy like Chewy. But our first tweet from Morgan Drennan says, "Okay, Chewy, I see magic is now in your repertoire. You shipped at 2 a.m. last night and it's 9:45 and was just delivered. My foster kittens were in need and you came through with flying colors. Hashtag Chewy magic. I love Chewy so much." And I like this because she used auto ship, or I don't think she mentioned it here, but she did use auto ship, I saw on Twitter. And it's that customer service that people are really clinging to.
Right, and so I think that's extremely important, because pet owners are very loyal people, just like their pets. And once you get someone hooked for life, I think they're in. And so, they're averaging around $350 per customer annually. And I think that's actually up 20% over, I think, quarter over quarter, year over year. So they're growing that dollars per customer, and they're locking them in for life. And so I think that's obviously very important. And I like the way that they kind of view customers in a longer term trend, as opposed to just getting the sales right now. So they know that that's going to help them out in the long term for sure.
Landon, I'm reading in these notes that Chewy is a subsidiary of PetSmart. Do we know about anything about the relationship with PetSmart? How do they, or is this judged as two different companies? How do you guys do something like that?
So when we look at Chewy, we're looking only at Chewy. So if you want to look at the parent company, we can zoom out, but when it comes to Chewy, we're only looking at that, and there may be some PetSmart mentions included in that, but we're going to filter them down to just Chewy.
Got it. And that's to me, it's interesting though, because PetSmart seems like that style store would be the one that would lose the most if a Chewy or Amazon really dominates this space. So potentially a pretty shrewd investment by PetSmart going ahead, and whether they started Chewy or bought it at some point, but clearly it's taking advantage of this disruption and making sure they're positioned well.
Yeah, I think it's a smart move. And, I said earlier that they've got about 11 million customers. There's 85 million households in the U.S. with pets. And so this is far from a saturated market. They're on their way. They're competing. It's about 2/3 of U.S. households have pets. I don't know who these weird people are that don't have pets, but I guess there are some of them out there. But for the ones that do have them, yeah, absolutely. They're becoming a go-to name. And once you get on that auto ship, why would you come off of it? And so it's a long-term move. And I think that, yeah, PetSmart's smart for doing that. But we like Chewy in their position right now. We think that they're growing. The tough thing for us, though, is the fact that they just IPO'd. And so I think the market's still trying to figure out exactly what their value is. And so we don't have any price history, really. We've only got a few months of price history for the company. So we don't know if a 11% quarter-over-quarter move versus the 3% expected is really going to move the stock up or not. It really depends on what the analyst expectations and what the market expectations are. And again, that's tough to read with a recent IPO.
Hey, Landon, blame my landlord for why I can't have a dog. I'm really ringing for one right now. But as far as the biggest competition, Amazon does have the Amazon Pet Supplies with Subscribe and Save, but they don't have those pet meds that Chewy has, which really sets them apart. However, there is 1-800-PET-MEDS, which is traded under that public company, ticker symbol PETS. But I do have this next tweet from Dennis M. surrounding Chewy's earnings later today. And he says, funny, but Chewy has kind of a unique position in the market and without any important competition. People love their pets, and that's what's at stake here. Earnings in line means they've done a great job so far. And like you said, people love their pets, and like we've talked about many times, people seem to spend almost anything to keep their pets happy. But I'm wondering, is that the case for Chewy as far as if they keep these earnings in line, does that mean they've done a great job, or what are we really looking for in today's report?
All I know is I have 4 jars on my counter space in my kitchen.
Are those your pets?
And 3 of the jars have treats in them for dogs. And 1 has granola bars, and the other 3 have dog treats. So there you go. And I'm not a pet person by definition. However, I have bought and have a pet for my wife. So, yeah. I get the whole treat thing.
Landon, kind of wrapping it up here. One thing, I don't remember if it was you or Andy that kind of said it, but you guys made a kind of a point of saying, when a new IPO comes to market, you like to stay on the sidelines, which is kind of what you alluded to, and gather some data for maybe a year or so. Is that kind of the case here before you're willing to make a call?
Yeah, we have said that in the past. Look, I'm a trader. I love to trade. So it's hard to just sit on the sidelines when we see good data in a company. One thing that I will say about IPOs, oftentimes we see the companies do a large push for new marketing, new customers right before the IPO to increase that valuation. And it's almost like the founders see it as an exit. We did see a big push before IPO for Chewy, but they've sustained it. With a lot of IPOs, we see that drop off afterwards, and that's a very bearish sign. And so the lack of that drop off and the actually sustaining the purchase intent and growing is actually a very bullish sign for us. So, if you're a more conservative trader, maybe sidelines, wait a little bit. I think I'm going to place some bets to the upside on this company just because I am a trader and we've got some decent data. I know that there's, we don't have all the information that we'd like to have. We'd like to have more price history, but I really am comfortable with the growth of this company and the way that they're positioning themselves in the market.